Hey guys, it's Troy here, and you know, one of the things I love about doing this channel is interacting with you guys, my viewers. And I got an email not too long ago from somebody who had said that he, because of seeing vintage pens here on my YouTube channel, decided to go ahead and get his very first vintage pen. So he found a listing on eBay and ordered a pen from a guy who apparently had a bunch of them. So he had emailed me and asked for a little bit of advice on a few things, and I was glad that he did. I went and I checked out that eBay listing, found that that seller had several more of the same pen, and I went ahead and ordered one for myself because they were like $8 and under, plus a little bit for shipping. So I went ahead and got this particular pen. It's by Arnold. I've never owned an Arnold, which is one of the reasons why I went ahead and ordered it. So Arnold is a third-tier manufacturer. This particular pen was listed as never having been used. It didn't say new old stock, but supposedly never used. Now, when it arrived, it had an awful lot of oxidation all around that cap band right there, all over that lever where you couldn't even read where it says made in USA. You couldn't read that before. You couldn't read the name Arnold on it. You really had to look for it. And so I took some metal polish and up here as well. That was all tarnished. So I scrubbed and scrubbed that to get it as clean as it is right now. So it's still not perfect, and quite honestly, I didn't feel like spending a lot more time on it because I got it to look a whole lot better, greatly improved. So for $8 and a little elbow grease, not only did I clean up the barrel, the cap, but also the hardware that was on it. So that nice green celluloid is actually looking fairly nice right now. So Arnold pens. It was a pen manufacturing company from Petersburg, Virginia, founded in 1935. They made fairly inexpensive but decent pens overall. They usually made lever fillers. They had some gold-plated pens, gold-plated nibs, and they generally went for 19 cents to 89 cents. And I'm reading this off from Richard Binder's website, by the way, and ad-libbing just a little bit. So anyway, the Arnold Pen Company actually existed until 2005, having been making ballpoints. But this particular pen, 1935 through 1950, somewhere in there is where I date it, maybe in the 40s. Think of Wherever. So if you're familiar with a third-tier manufacturer that made them in mass, fairly inexpensively, like Wherever, and quite honestly, I'm not a fan of Wherever. I actually like this Arnold better than Wherever's. Arnold supposedly are fairly easy to find. I gotta be honest with you, I haven't been finding them. I've found a bunch of Wherevers, but not quite as many Arnolds out and about. I didn't have one in my collection. I got a bunch of antique and vintage lever filler pens in my collection. So I went ahead and got this one. Now let me show you. Yes, I got some of the ink on my hands because I was playing with it here just before the video. And one of the things that I was asked is about filling it, and one of the things I said was not knowing what kind of condition it was in. If it had truly never been inked, then that sack in here should be still fairly pliable if it had never been used, so it wouldn't be all crystallized and hardened and essentially petrified with ink residue and old latex. And sure enough, I'm not going to do it here because I played with it just a little too much, I got a little bit of ink on my fingers. But I got this particular pen, and sure enough, it was pliable. And I've been using it an awful lot today, just because I could. And I filled it with an ink that I kind of like. And it's a Birmingham Pens ink. And it is grass stain green. There's actually a full name for it, but I can just call it grass stain green. And it just kind of matched the pen just a little bit. So, this particular pen, I want to show you an Esterbrook, the SJ, so you can see how they stack up as far as size. So if you're familiar with the SJ, then you're familiar with essentially the same size as the Arnold, and here is the J from Esterbrook. So it's a little smaller, a little thinner than the J. but very similar to the SJ in its size and its feel. So just that for reference for you. So I'll set those aside. This particular pen, it's a little tight there, but one of the things about it when I first noticed it was it has a nib from Very Smooth is the name that is on this nib. Now, Very Smooths, sometimes they live up to their name. Sometimes not quite as much, because I've had, I guess, 4 or 5 nibs from Very Smooth, and some of them have been just that, very, very smooth, and some of them not quite as much. This particular one, it was in between. So I did get out my micro mesh, and I smoothed it out a little bit, and now it actually writes fairly well. So you go to pick it up, and you expect it to be a fairly small pen in the hand. I'm definitely going to post it because of the size that it is to make it more comfortable. It's a very lightweight pen, and that's one of the things I've been liking about it all day long. Is it is very light, and it's been easy to work with and to write with. So let's go see what we've got here. So a circa 1935 up to, I'd say, possibly 1950. I'm just guessing there, probably within that time frame. I'm no expert on this, and I haven't been able to find a lot of information, but this is Arnold. And don't know what model it is. I don't see anything that tells me what the model might be. So, lever filler. And it's got the Very Smooth brand nib. I have different brands I've run across have got Very Smooth nibs for the brand, and they're steel nibs. You're not going to get a whole lot out of it. It's a rather rigid nib. You're not going to get line variation out of it, but like I said, I did some work on this nib, and it is now very smooth. It matches the name on the nib. So it just took a little bit of my touch. So I have in this thing, like I said, some Birmingham pens. Birmingham pens. Grass stain. Birmingham pens always has some decent inks. I mean, I don't know who makes their inks. They're usually out of Germany. But I've been fairly happy with most of their inks. They're usually well behaved. They usually are wet enough and easy to clean enough that they keep my interest. So if you can find an Arnold, if you want something from the 1930s, possibly up to 1950 or so, I only guess on that because, you know, still playing with sax in the early 50s. You know, I'm assuming because these Esterbrooks were made in the 40s or so, that it was a cheap alternative to an Esterbrook. I'm guessing, I'm going to put this in the 40s is my guess. I may be completely wrong. But this is my first Arnold, and so I really can't complain about it. I think it's actually, once I just put just a little bit of smoothness onto this nib, this very smooth nib, it actually is writing very smoothly. It's been reliable. I can tell you right now that the cap sometimes is just a little tough to get off, and when it seats in the threads, it almost makes it not completely straight, and then and now it's completely straight. But I kind of expect that, and I will accommodate that flaw, no problem in a vintage pen. It's something to expect. So I cleaned it up. Like I said, if you can clean up the hardware, if you can find something like that, you know, it's worth your time to get some metal polish and go ahead and shine it up just a little bit. It still would have worked just fine even without the polishing on it, but it definitely looks better, and it was just more to my liking and my tastes. So if you can find them, antique shops, online, this was an eBay listing, and for $8 plus a few bucks shipping, I've got my first Arnold, and I'm kind of happy with it.